They can't do this. It's disgraceful. I mean, a human? What could he have possibly done besides being exceptionally average in every conceivable manner? General Karn, it was nearly unanimous in the Senate. I think you're just jealous someone else is going to be in the limelight for a change. But two in the same century? And to a human, no less. Honestly, they're handing them out to anyone now. What next? They're going to give one to a Lethan for getting above average scrap in his junk scavenging quota? Well, before you come to your conclusions too quickly, General, let's at least give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe this human was slightly above average. Ambassador Calix chuckled. But I do agree, it's far too soon. I mean, 11 medals in 5,000 years, and we get to witness 2 in our lifetime. Regardless, I am happy for another holiday being added to the human calendar on the dreadful occasion that I have to work with them again. General Karn grumbled as they made their way down the red carpet that stretched up the steps of the Great Hall. General Karn was greeted with a spectacular fanfare of music and cheers as he stepped through the entryway. As the last recipient of the Galactic Honor Medal, he would be one of the guests of honor for the ceremony. Just yesterday, he turned down the offer to be the one to personally gift the medal to the human, saying his presence alone would be enough of an honor. He made his way to his seating near the front of the opulent awards hall and took his place near the podium. In his seat was a small paper-bound book titled The Escaido Conflict, a first-hand account. He picked up the volume with a grumble so he could sit down. Why did they think he wanted to waste his time with reading about Escaido? He personally peer-reviewed countless publications on the military strategy and political consequences of Escaido. He was sure he could retell the statistics and the strategy of the Escaido conflict better than any mere foot soldier on the ground. Seeing the Great Hall decorated for a Galactic Honor Medal was an opportunity very few would get to witness in their lifespan. And here he was, seeing it all over again. But this time it wasn't adorned for him, but for some pitiful human. The massive banners that bore the insignia of his species' last ceremony had now been replaced with the emblem of the humans. It seemed rather distasteful to have his beautiful banners replaced with something so minimalist. The Great Hall had the capacity for nearly 1 million spectators from hundreds of different species, and for the second time in a century, it was completely full. Once the remaining important dignitaries, ambassadors, and political and military leaders found their respective places, the ceremony began. The leader of the Terran Republic made their way on stage and gave his opening remarks. Nothing really worth paying attention to. General Karn was more focused on the empty seat near the podium, hoping to get a look at this supposed above-average human. He wanted to witness the man for himself and see what could be so special about him. Confusion was spreading across the crowd once more, and more people took notice of the strangely empty seat. This human is giving me more and more reasons to dislike him. I mean, not showing up to his own galactic honor ceremony. That should be a crime, if you ask me, General Karn said to the ambassador seated next to him. Perhaps they have some grand entrance planned. Leave it to the humans to be overly extra with their presentations. They don't even have the decency to adhere to millennia of traditions. Well, if it gets any worse than this, they'll ensure they're never given the opportunity to earn another, which is fine by me. After the usual introductions and dreadfully boring formalities of starting the ceremony, General Karn finally blessed the speaking human with a modicum of attention. For over 5,000 years, the Galactic Honor Medal and its recipients has stood as a beacon for all of our members in service, from any origin or species. It represents something that anyone can strive to achieve, and to be the change that would impact the galaxy for the better. It is reserved for individuals who display acts of valor that save the lives of millions, whose actions single-handedly change the course of history as we know it, and whose displays of courage are to be remembered and appreciated by all. With this in mind, it is my hope that today we shall remember a soldier who has given more to the galaxy than anyone presently in this room. General Karn rolled his eyes at the last remark, thinking that it might have been somewhat directed at him. This human probably did not have the slightest comprehension of what he had to do to earn his. A soldier whose acts of uncontested bravery may be an example for all to strive for in their military service. United Terran Army Private John William Ringet has distinguished himself from his peers by going above and beyond anything expected of him when he entered service to the Galactic Republic 1 year ago. And it is with great sadness that he is not present with us today to receive this honor in person. General Karn leaned over, whispering again, "Oh, I'm sure he has much more important things to do right now, but I guess desecrating the prestige of the most important award in the galaxy is pretty paramount." Ambassador Calix gave a small laugh, and they refer to him in the past tense, as if he is someone different now and is no longer the same human who earned this award. Private John William Ringet graduated from the Terran Infantry Academy and Orbital Strike School and immediately was sent to Escaido to take part in the large-scale stabilization operation there. At 17 years of age, he left Earth and was dropped into one of the most hostile zones on the planet. After 3 months of fighting on the surface of Escaido, it was seen as a losing battle, and his squad was issued an evacuation order. They were told to depart from the planet and leave it to its destruction. At around 1800 hours on the 7th of June Terran Standard Time, his squad made the executive decision to stay behind to ensure the evacuation of Escaidian civilians. At the time, they did not know it, but they were escorting the very last members of the Escaidian species. Upon this revelation, though filled with countless people, the room had grown completely silent. Many had heard of the tragedies on Escaido, but until now none had known just how severe the circumstances of the war had been, and how close the species was to complete extinction. His squad secured the only remaining spaceport on the planet and started the evacuation of the civilians. However, at the time of arrival, only 3 of the squad of 9 remained. His 2 squad mates, Staff Sergeant Andrew Miller and Technical Sergeant Brian Jones, took control of a military transport and set to bring the civilians out of the war zone. As they prepared to start the evacuation, they became aware of an enemy battalion expeditiously advancing towards the last remaining entry tunnel. Private John William chose to stay behind to ensure the safety of his squad and the civilians, in the hope that he could buy time for their withdrawal. Before their departure, Private John William sealed the doors to the facility and set up a hasty defense in the tunnel. At 2000 hours, a battalion of enemy combatants, aided with multiple military support vehicles, began to assault the facility, set to ensure the complete extermination of the Escaidian people. Private John William placed himself between the attackers and the entrance door at the end of the tunnel and attempted to stave them off. Ignoring insurmountable odds, Private John William continued to fight in an unwinnable battle against an unending enemy opposition. Beset by an endless barrage of machine gun fire and plasma fire, Private John William held the line for the 4 hours it took to evacuate the civilians. It took nearly 3 trips to transport all of the citizens from the port. When they began their transport trips, military forces had already completely withdrawn from the surface of Escaido. As the final soldier on the front lines in the Escaido conflict, Private John William gave the ultimate sacrifice, knowing that there would be no reinforcements and no evacuation for himself. For his utmost bravery and courage in the face of an indomitable enemy, his actions reflect the highest glory upon himself and his unit. For his service on Escaido and to the galaxy, Terran Republic Private John William Ringet is awarded the Galactic Honor Medal. Let it be known, a soldier does not have to return from a conflict to be recognized as the pinnacle of military valor. Private John William is the first individual to posthumously receive the Galactic Honor Medal. In your seats, you will find his personal diary of his time on Escaido, published at his last request. It was his hope that the tragedy that transpired on Escaido is never forgotten to history, and his first-hand account aids in making that possible. When his speech ended, the Great Hall did not cheer nor celebrate as it had for past ceremonies. No extravagant light display or confetti decorated the Great Hall and dazzled the spectators with the glory of the recipient, as it normally would. The human speaker merely placed the medal atop an empty wooden casket that was hidden behind him, and departed from the stage. The long and drawn-out tradition of handshakes and exquisite feasts did not follow the ceremony. What followed was a procession of delegates and dignitaries paying respects to the empty casket that symbolized the recipient of the award. General Karn looked down at the paper-bound book that was still in his claws, regretting that he was so quick to dismiss it earlier. He made a note to take the day off tomorrow so he could read it in its entirety. He walked up the stage and made his way towards the simplistic wooden box. He was not entirely sure what its purpose was, but it seemed to be something reserved for a solemn affair. After waiting in the line of people placing gifts and colorful flora from various worlds around it, it was his turn to pay his respects. Inside was a flag, a pair of small metal tags with human writing stamped into them, and the medal, which would normally be the center of attention. However, this piece of metal seemed rather minuscule in comparison to what it represented. He stood over the box and placed his clawed hand on the side of it. "Do you have anything to give, General?" asked Ambassador Calix in a small voice. "Nothing that would do him justice, only my condolences and apologies for how I composed myself earlier. I suppose this human was above average after all, but I now feel that would be quite an inadequate way to describe him.